Well, Royal Road Minerals is a TSX-listed exploration company focused on the discovery, acquisition and development of gold and copper projects. The company was established in 2010 by the original founders of Lydian International. Well, it's established now in Turkey and potentially branching into Colombia. The journey continues in both company development and geography. And the Chief Executive, Dr. Tim Coughlin, is with me now. So Tim, Colombia, eyeing up 2 projects there. What's so tantalising about that region?
The potential to find high grade, I think, in Colombia, as a sort of simple, short answer to that question. The longer answer is that we spent a lot of time at the beginning of this year trying to decide or trying to second guess what the market would want in this particular environment. And we figured it would be grade, margin, something that was a bit of a no-brainer, ideally in a jurisdiction that was understandable at least, and an environment in which we had some experience. And we know Colombia reasonably well, back from around about 10 years ago, albeit, but that's why it became it sort of floated to the top in terms of a potential reaction to the current market environment.
But the fundamentals are there, and one of the projects you're looking at is La Golondrina. Now you're in a due diligence period for that. What's the structure of that deal?
The due diligence we've completed on Golondrina, which was legal and sort of short-term technical due diligence. The deal on that is that we've signed it. We have a binding letter of intent on a very high-grade, very exciting gold project in southern Colombia. And we are moving now to a definitive agreement. The definitive agreement requires a down payment of about $30,000. And then we've got 3 years to complete about 1,500 metres of drilling, some tunnel surveying, some sampling, and then move to the next stage. Of course, we'd be hoping to complete that drilling and all of that work in a lot less than 3 years. But the deal gives us a bit of space, a bit of breathing space in these markets. I'll keep referring to them as these markets, but it gives us a bit of room. I might also add that if during that period we produce our own in-house or feasibility study, or one that we get someone else to do, and we decide that the project's not economic at that point in time, we can extend for another 5 years. So it's quite a good deal. At the end of the day, once we exercise our option to earn 100%, the owner retains either a 20% net present interest, or he does a 15% and a 1% net smelter royalty. So he stays with us in the development of the project going forward.
Okay, so what is the potential of La Golondrina?
It's never been drilled, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's wide open in terms of potential. There are 400 metres of vertical elevation, about 30 levels of previous workings by small-scale miners. 2 of those are currently active, but they've only gone in about 100 metres or 200 metres maximum on small 20, 30 centimetre wide veins that are generally shallow dipping to flat. But these run extraordinary grades, so up to 40, 50 grams, and I think an average of 51 vein samples conducted by Anglo Gold, who had a look at the project in the past, was around about 13 grams. But so the potential is for stacked flat veins, and what we're seeing are vein zones as well. It's not single veins, but wider vein zones that are obviously also high grade because the local miners are removing those as well. And over a vertical distance of about 400 metres. So potential obviously for plus million ounce resource, but also at very high grades. So it's not very often you come across a project like this.
You know, I was reading that previous workings didn't advance at La Golondrina due to lack of electricity, so it was a light and ventilation issue. Is that an issue that may be a problem for yourselves?
Mostly ventilation. We just get bigger generators. No, it wasn't a problem for us. 2
generators as opposed to
one.
none then.
Yeah.
Okay, now you mentioned El Alacran. Talk to me about that project?
So Alacran is a copper gold project, copper gold skarn. And this is in northern Colombia in Córdoba province. It's been looked at in the past. I mean, it was a project that had some pretty heavy option payments on it, which we've negotiated out of the deal now, although certainly this market has helped us negotiate that out of the deal. It has potential for a couple of things. I mean, for a sulfide resource on the skarn itself, for an oxide resource, and for an underlying porphyry. The sort of in-house estimates and independent estimates that were not published, so they're not 43-101 compliant, around about 1.3 up to 2 million ounces gold equivalent as it currently stands, and that's probably inferred category more than anything else. So it is a project of potential. It's a project, I have to say, that will need a lot of capital, and so whilst we're fairly confident, we're doing a small capital raising now to cover the costs at Golondrina. We're confident we can manage that. Not fairly confident, we're very confident we can manage that. Alacran is going to be something else. It's going to require a lot of drilling and a significant amount of capital. So our aim with that project is to speak to financiers and B, partners about potential deals on that project to help us take it forward. It's probably not something in these markets for us to be able to finance ourselves.
And it's possibly too early for me to talk to you about the tranches of fundraising, if all goes well and you get both of the projects.
Well, if we get both of the projects, then we would need to do a second financing before October 15 to finance Alacran. But once again, it's not a case of just raising some money or the money that we need to do that project. In our view, Golondrina has to be the focus, but if we take Alacran forward, we need a partner that's going to be involved, maybe to finance us or maybe to joint venture with us, and be there for the next round. It needs a lot of drilling. It needs a good 10,000, maybe 20,000 metres drilling over the next 2 years. So
have you put it out there that you're interested in JV arrangements?
I just have, I think.
Right, let's move on. So I'm just wondering, because earlier this year you listed on the TSX. Was that primarily to fund the Colombian ventures?
It was an aim of, we were previously called Tigris Resources before we became Royal Road Minerals, obviously. It was always an aim of the company. We had investors in Tigris for 4 years prior to the IPO. And those investors are there for the traditional market exit. Exploration is high risk, capital intensive, and people expect ultimately an IPO. We were supported in that IPO by our largest shareholder, which is Sprott out of the US, so Sprott Global. They helped us locate the vehicle and were terrific in the whole process. So it was something we had to do. I'm glad it's out of the way.
So you're not tantalised at all by the AIM market here in London?
We considered it prior to the Toronto listing, but I think it's fair to say that our investors are more Toronto market centric, or they're more used to that particular market, and so are we. A dual listing may be a possibility, but that's a long way off just now.
Okay, and earlier on in our conversation you alluded to the fact that the team has got South American experience. Is that just yourself or a couple of others on the board?
Well, apart from I spent most of my career in South America. I'm quite pleased to be going back, to be honest. So our chairman, Pete Mullins, he was in Peru for a good 10 years. Spent a lot of he's worked in Argentina, Peru and Chile. Vern Arsenault, one of our non-executive directors, actually lives in Mendoza in Argentina. He ran Noranda's porphyry exploration programs in Chile, Peru, porphyry skarn exploration programs in Chile, Peru and Argentina. Yeah, it's not new for us.
Okay, so you say you're pleased to be going back. Is that for the weather, the food, or the opportunity?
All of those things. No, it's. Colombia's been an interesting experience. It's always interesting to go back somewhere after being away for 10 years, and so Last time I was there was 2005, I think. And prior to that, I was consulting to Anglo in those days. But prior to that, I was Anglo's chief geologist in South America. And we moved that company into Colombia during the early days of the Uribe presidency and the sort of later part of the Pastrana presidency. And so we've seen a lot, or I've seen a lot of change. After 10 years away, as I say, we're there to 2005. Then we discovered Almozar and Armenia, and then I went back this year, been back twice. And it's quite interesting. Things have improved on the security side, but then there are now other issues, as always, that need to be dealt with. Colombia is a very sophisticated country, so areas, luckily not where we are in Nariño province in the south, but areas that we used to look at in sort of central Colombia in the Cauca Valley that used to be difficult to access because of the guerrilleros or guerrilla activity have now been demilitarized and opened up. But now, of course, there's lots of money flowing into those environments, so that there's competing interests in terms of surface rights, consolidation of surface rights, even tourism. It's very beautiful over. That central part of Colombia is quite special. Nariño in the south is a little bit different, so we feel quite confident there. I think I mentioned that one of the boxes we like the biggest risks in our sector is obviously permitting projects. What's encouraging about Golondrina is there are 3 gravity and CIL plants permitted and operating within a 15-kilometre radius of our project. So we're in a mining area. So I think the big change I've seen in Colombia is you need to focus on areas where you can develop mines, and it's a very sophisticated and developing country. Now it's come through this Uribe process.
When will investors hear that things are progressing or have progressed? They'll hear about things progressing over the next couple of weeks in terms of Golondrina, and what we haven't spoken about is that we're still drilling at Gomech property in Turkey, and so we're doing diamond holes there, so we're trying to get deep into those mineralized structures, and that itself is a very tantalizing project, but it's a big project, it's a big low-grade project, and like Alacran, it's one that would need a lot of money. So there'll be some news coming out about that in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and more on Golondrina as we start work there. Dr. Tim Coughlin, Chief Executive of Royal Road Minerals, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah, my pleasure.